Let's go.
Ate for calling my stepmother toxic after she screamed at me until I cried. This is a long one and kind of specific family drama, but I'd really appreciate some outside perspectives. I, 20M, and my brother, 16M, let's call him Nick, live with our dad, 47M, and his wife, 46F Agatha. We moved in together in late 2022, and they got married in early 2023. Since moving in, our relationship with Agatha has been tense. She expects us to contribute to the household through chores, which is fair except her contributions are sporadic and sometimes non-existent. Her reasoning is that she works full-time and pays for the mortgage, but my dad pays the other half and still does more around the house than she does. Also, she's been unemployed for almost a year. She has been dealing with her ailing mother and selling her old apartment, and has had way more free time than anyone else in the house lately. She does help out sometimes, but mostly when it involves her own interests, like redecorating or spontaneous, rage-fueled cleaning binges. Something important to note, Agatha has mentioned she likely has bipolar disorder and is seeing a therapist, I don't know for what specifically. She has a very short fuse, and if she's already in a mood, any mess sets her off. It's not uncommon to get texts like, "Clean this fucking kitchen." I understand anger, but whenever I try to talk about where it's coming from, the response is basically, she just doesn't like being reminded that other people live in her house. She's implied multiple times that she got married under the understanding that Nick and I would move out soon and that we'd basically self-manage and not make mess, even though she's just as messy as the rest of us. No one brings this up because she's honestly scary. Anyway, here's the recent incident. I just got back from visiting my partner's family overseas and immediately started law school 2 days later and resumed my bar job, so I've been flat out. But I negotiated a chore schedule that works, and things had been okay. Today, while on a break from a major assignment, I went to make lunch and saw that Nick had already cooked and left stuff out. Normally, I'd ask him to clean it, but I was in a rush and decided to just use what was already out. My dad came down, saw the mess, and asked me to clean up. I said I would after eating, since I might cook more. After I finished, I cleaned up about half the kitchen, including food and mess from my dad-wiped benches, and told my brother his half was still there to clean. Then I went back to my room to study. 2 minutes later, I get a text from my dad in our family group chat. At OP Kitchen, I was totally confused. I'd just cleaned more than half. I figured either Dad asked Nick about the mess, and Nick blamed me. Dad saw it still messy and assumed I bailed before finishing. I replied that I'd cleaned half and asked what Nick had said. My dad didn't answer the question, just said, "The kitchen needs to be cleaned." I repeated myself again, no response to my question, just, "Talk to your brother." So I did. Turns out Agatha had come into the kitchen after I left, yelled at Nick about the mess, and then my dad messaged me. I went to clarify with him. He and Agatha were already prepared for a discussion and called Nick over too. I asked if I'd be allowed to explain uninterrupted. They both said yes. My dad gave a whole speech about how important it is that the kitchen stays clean and how tired they are of reminding us. I listened quietly. When he was done, I said I understood and asked again to speak uninterrupted. About a minute into explaining my side, how I followed his instruction and cleaned my half, and then Agatha started interrupting. Then she snapped. She said she didn't need to hear the whole story, that I was still wrong, and started yelling at both of us. I asked her to let me finish, and she screamed, "No, it's my house. You do what I say." I broke. I started crying, full-on sobbing, but she kept screaming about the mess, about how sick she was of all of it. My dad eventually told her what she was doing wasn't okay, and that he didn't like her shouting at his kids. She kept going. And I snapped. Through the tears, I said, "Are you hearing yourself? You are toxic." Yeah, she went full-on thermonuclear. I walked away, realizing I may have just gotten myself kicked out. As I went downstairs, I heard them yelling, not uncommon, but this time it was about me. I heard my dad shout, "He lives here too." I heard her shout, "Well, then he can get out." I stayed crying in my room for 20 minutes. My dad came down and tried to talk to me about how I can't call her toxic because it's therapized language, and it hurts her. I get that. She's called her own parents toxic before, so hearing it turned on her probably hit a nerve. But I said what I said because I meant it. She acts like she deserves total respect and authority, but behaves like a child. She demands cleanliness, but makes months-long messes. She screams at us, but won't hear a word in return. She's always right, always the victim, and everyone else is the problem. She's harming me, and more importantly, my younger brother. We're both going to need therapy after this. I don't feel safe or comfortable in my own home. I'm constantly bracing to be screamed at for something minor that sets her off. And when she tries to be nice, it's so forced and uncomfortable, like a smiling snake asking for a hug. She makes promises to win us over, then rarely follows through. And a TLDR. I was being blamed for a mess I had mostly cleaned. When I tried to explain, my stepmother screamed at me until I cried. I called her toxic. Things exploded. AI ETA? ETA has no consensus bot. OOP was NTA. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. You are not the A. You are a victim of emotional abuse. OP. Thank you. You have no idea how much it meant to me to see this. I know it's fucked up, but I was starting to think maybe I was in the wrong for saying what I did. Commenter 2. NTA sounds like you copped it over a situation that is built up to boiling point. In this one instance, you said your dad asked you to clean the mess, and you told him you would, if you told him that you would clean your half, and your brother needed to do his share. He may have gone to your brother to finish the job. Living with somebody who has a mental illness that causes behavior like this is exhausting. Your father is the one who has brought you all together, and he needs to be more responsible for keeping the peace. If when they got married, he told her his children would not be living with him, and she made it clear to him her ability to cope with that was not good, he needs to do more to make it easier for her. He also needs to provide a home for his children, and should not be exposing you both to this chaos and toxic behavior. Your father is the asshole here. People don't grow up hoping to become a step-parent one day. It's sometimes a thankless and unappreciated role. She is clearly resentful and ill-equipped for this situation. I hope it works out for you all. OP. All of that is very true. As much as I hate to give my dad any blame for this, it is his fault for bringing us into this situation with her, and it's up to him to get us out. Although I am basically at the point where I'll be moving out as soon as I can. I later had an opportunity to speak with him privately, and I said that if I was in his situation, the relationship would be over, and I'd be taking my kids somewhere safe. I asked my dad how he was okay with this kind of behavior from his wife. He said that he wasn't, and that he was just expecting change on Mike. The amount of self-control not to say anything back to that was enormous. Because seriously, if this was the other way around, and she had the kids and her husband was yelling at them, people would be calling her stupid for staying with an abusive man and expecting him to change. Like, really, am I insane? Commenter 3. NTA. It sounds like a legitimate response to an unfair situation. You should remind your father that it is more legitimate for you, give your age, to lash out than it is for her, and yet somehow you've been made to feel responsible for her inability to control herself. It's not okay, and you deserve better. Opie, no, you're absolutely right. This isn't okay, I can see that now. I shouldn't have to put up with being made to walk on eggshells around my house. I'm going to try and get another opportunity to speak to my dad tomorrow and make sure he understands how much this has impacted me and my brother, and how through his inaction he is actively making a choice to continue allowing abuse to be inflicted upon us. To me, it doesn't really make sense why he would allow it. Commenter 4. NTA. Your stepmom's screaming wasn't a discussion, it was a verbal assault, and your dad's therapized language lecture? Pleasey, you're not a feelings translator for a grown woman throwing tantrums. Pack your bags and protect your brother. You should find somewhere you can live without bracing for emotional landmines. Update, #1, March 29th, 2025. So yesterday after I posted to Reddit, my brother, my father, and I went grocery shopping, sort of just to get out of the house. While we were out, I expressed how I was feeling to him. The fact that if I was in his position, the relationship would be over. He basically just said he was trusting her to change, and that he had seen her change. I personally haven't seen any change. What I've seen is her becoming more and more reclusive, being less involved with our lives, and our relationship with her becoming more tense as a result. He- Late last night, after venting to my partner about the whole situation on the phone and reading some really kind and insightful replies, I was literally crying while reading them, thank you. I locked and barricaded my door before going to sleep. I just didn't feel safe to sleep in an unlocked room. This morning, my dad knocked on my door. I removed the stuff from behind it and we had a quick chat. It was brief but dense, so I'll try to summarize. Apparently, she wasn't home last night, and she's going out tonight. I told him that what she did yesterday was abuse, and I refused to have it happen again. Dad said that he would face her with an ultimatum: change or they're done. I told him that only thing that was guaranteed is the abuse and pain that's already happened and will likely continue. This isn't the first time she's been asked to change. I told him that my brother and I have already been hurt and that we'll need therapy because of this. He acknowledged that and said maybe it will be best if they just live separate for the next few years, with us living with him until we move out. I said I thought this is a good idea. He admitted that she doesn't want a relationship with us. She only tries as he wants her to. Yeah. I said that when my brother and I move out, his relationship with us will be worse because of the way she isolates him. He said that the reason she has such a hard time with us is because she hates having to ask us to clean and do our chores. I said, sure, but she's not the victim here. She lives surrounded by her own mess all the time, and we don't say anything, let alone yell or scream. I said very clearly that we don't feel safe or comfortable in our own home. What she is doing is abuse and emotional manipulation. It's not okay. The fact that it's happened at all should be the end of it. The fact that we're still here, trying to make it work, is a problem. We'll be having a sit down, just the three of us, without her after I get home from work tonight. I don't think I would have had the courage to do this without the support I received from the comments. You guys helped me realize that this isn't okay, and I can't keep accepting it for me, for my brother, and for my father. So thank you so much. The support has been really invaluable. Top comments. Commenter 1. Good job on standing firm for all three of you, whether your father recognizes it or not. Commenter 2. Good job. I personally think it would be wrong to leave a 16-year-old to live in their own. For you're at 20, it would be okay, but not okay that a 20-year-old is in charge and responsible for a 16-year-old IAMHO. Your dad's responsibility is to his children first, and that stepmom isn't safe for you and your brother. I'd see MHO as dad's job to make sure his children are safe, and you clearly are not as it is. I have a feeling that she isn't even kind to your dad, especially when he is advocating for you guys. I hope your discussion was a good one that ended in a solid plan that makes you and your bro not only are safe, but feel safe. Commenter 3. NTA, remind your father that choosing to stay with this woman who treats his own children this badly is going to have long-term consequences. He will see you and your brother less frequently. Once you get married, you will probably choose to spend more holidays with your spouse's family. As she has made it clear that she doesn't appreciate children and is abusive towards them, he can expect to only see his grandchildren when he visits, and she will not be invited. Update #2, March 30th, 2025, next day. So after I got home from work, the three of us, my dad, my brother, and I, met in the kitchen to talk. It turns out my dad had tried talking to Agatha about what I'd said to him earlier today, and even said that she was being emotionally abusive directly to her, and she told him she would never forgive him for saying that. I wasn't there to hear it, but my brother told me there was a lot of shouting, followed by her packing her bags and going to stay with a friend for the night. The conversation with my dad and brother went on for hours as I write this. It's been more than 3 hours after I got home, and we only just finished less than half an hour ago. I started by being very firm and reiterating the fact that what she did yesterday was extremely abusive, and it's certainly not the first time this has happened, and it's likely not the last. I said that it shouldn't matter what the circumstances are. Screaming at us to inflict pain should never be an option. My dad immediately went to using the argument that I've heard from her so many times to justify her being abusive in her relationship with my brother and I. That when the chores don't get done, she gets really angry. I said that I understand the anger, but she's an adult. She needs to manage that and engage in discussion with us, rather than just yell at us and refuse to listen to any explanations. Yesterday, we had done what we had been told, and when I tried explaining the confusion, she screamed at me until I cried and then kept going. I said very clearly, us forgetting to do some chores and her abusing us are not on the same level. He said, well, you say that. I almost broke down again. Like, seriously, if a little mess causes a meltdown, maybe she shouldn't be living in a house with two people with diagnosed ADHD, near constant remodeling and modifications, and two large, messy dogs. Not to mention that she herself is far from perfect. I said that it is not okay that she'll just imply eviction to keep us in line. She'll say things like, you better unpack that dishwasher. I pay for the roof over your head. You need to pull your own fucking weight in this house if you want to live here. She said this to my 16-year-old brother over dishes. There was a lot of back and forth about this thing of us provoking her. Eventually, I used an analogy to try and explain it. If someone is in an aquarium with a shark and they cut themselves, accidentally or not, and the shark enters a frenzy and attacks, the question shouldn't be, why weren't they more careful? There's a shark in there. It should be. Who the F asterisk, asterisk, asterisk put that person in the tank with a shark? I think that got through to him. He asked me what I expected him to do. They're married. He can't just leave. And I asked, why not? What would need to happen for you to get us and yourself out of here? Physical abuse. One of us getting pushed down the stairs? Because that's the way it's going. After that, things shifted a little. It became much less oppositional discussion as he came to the realization of what had to happen. He did say that the four of us, including Agatha, would need to sit down and talk about what needs to be done. I don't really want to do this, and I'm honestly scared about seeing her again. The last time I stood up to her, she didn't speak to me for a week, and she used this glare that made me feel uncomfortable in my own skin. She only started talking to me again after I foolishly apologized to keep the peace. I feel quite sad for my dad. At this point, he's barreling towards a second divorce, and his children are being abused by the person he loves. It's a tough situation for him to be in, but I have to ask how he didn't see it coming. The conversation ended with hugs, and my dad went upstairs to go to sleep. My brother and I kept talking, and eventually we started talking about how things were going with his girlfriend. He made a joke, and we laughed, maybe a little too loud. And I looked at the stairs, almost out of instinct, expecting her to come down and yell at him to clean the kitchen and go to bed. I realized I don't have to worry about that right now. I really hope I never have to worry about that again. Again, thank you so much for the support. I'm not one to advocate so hard for myself. Maybe one of those issues for therapy. But you helped me realize that I don't owe her endless chances to change. And the support from you guys has given me the strength not to back down again. So really thank you. And if something happens, I'll be sure to update you. P.S. Sorry if this one isn't as well edited as the previous ones. It's been a long couple of days. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Having a conversation that includes Agatha will be pointless. I mean, that's how all this started. You tried to have a conversation about the kitchen not being cleaned, and she went off on you. Your father just needs to accept that she is not a good person. She won't change and will continue to be abusive to you. This marriage is over unless he wants to risk losing you and your brother. OP, yeah, to be honest, I don't really see the point of a sit-down with her. At this point, it doesn't matter if she apologizes and promises to change. I'm not going to trust her. But to be very clear, I don't expect her to ever apologize. I don't think she's capable of understanding the hurt she's causing. And my dad has even said as much when trying to explain why she's never said sorry. What's more likely is that we'll just cop more abuse over daring to cause problems in her marriage and be called insensitive for hurting her mental health by calling her abusive. Commenter 2. Your father's evidently preferring to let her continue to abuse you rather than protecting you by separating your living spaces. He's still putting her and his marriage above his children, who are too young to live elsewhere. I hope the shark analogy got through, but I fear he'll come up with more excuses. If this doesn't resolve in a few days, Consider calling an adult who can house you, or speak to the school guidance counselors for your brother or even CPS or child help hotline. https://www.childhealthhotline.org. CPS in your area might require serious physical abuse or neglect to get involved. But if you impress on them that you two are at the end of your ropes, emotionally terrified, and despondent it might get her or you removed from the situation, that's a last resort. Don't threaten it, but use it if you have to. You're an adult, but your brother isn't, so that might give you some leverage. Ope, in terms of my brother and I just packing up and leaving, it is an option and one that I have deeply considered. But at this point, I'm just going to wait and see if